let's let Mr. Bride take it away, and let's really listen to what he says, because there's a few interesting choices of words he used. This bizarre-looking man, this greasy, strange fellow. But anyway, take it away, Joseph.
Big news, folks. Breaking news regarding the human trafficking allegations against Andrew and Tristan Tate in Florida. 6 months ago, opposing counsel filed a motion stating that there was a criminal investigation into Andrew and Tristan related to human trafficking. We knew.
Okay, so straight away, so he's bringing up the criminal investigation in Florida. So when the Tates were in the US back in March, you may recall Governor Ron DeSantis announcing that they weren't welcome in Florida and that they were announcing a criminal investigation into the Tate brothers. So he's bringing up criminal charges here. Remember, this news is regarding a civil lawsuit, so let's just keep that in mind.
From Jump Street that these were just very unfair delay tactics. But we pondered.
Okay. Okay. The DOJ, the federal government, requested that this case be stayed. Basically, this case be paused until the federal investigation is complete. Jane Doe's lawyers have also mentioned that there is a criminal investigation in Florida, and so this case should be stayed until these criminal investigations are concluded. The federal government have requested that they stay this case, as I'm sure Mr. McBride won't let us know, but that they are being investigated by the federal government in the USA for crimes that include human trafficking. So that's important context.
From Jump Street that these were just very unfair delay tactics.
It's unfair delay tactics. It's a very standard thing for a civil lawsuit around claims that are very closely related to criminal and federal investigations for the civil lawsuit to be stayed in a situation like that. It's common sense. It's normal. So he's acting like these outrageous delay tactics, desperate delay tactics. They're under federal and state criminal investigation in the US.
Is to lean into
Mate,
truth.
can you hear me?
Oh yes, Crayons, you're there.
Hey, how you doing?
He's there.
Man,
Good.
sorry a little bit late on that one. Had some technical.
That's okay.
Had some technical difficulties. How you doing?
That's good. I was just telling the chat earlier that if there's one person who may be more of a boomer than me here, it might be you.
What have you covered so far?
I've
besides
just
the usual nonsense.
I've just started getting into Mr. McBride's video. I'm 30 seconds in, and I've paused it about 4 times already to cover some things he's said. So McBride was saying that so Jane Doe's lawyers mentioned that there was a criminal case and that this was just desperate delay tactics.
Just go ahead and just tell me what he says. When you pause it, let me know what he says, and I can go from there. Because if you play it here, you'll get a loop.
6 months ago, opposing counsel filed a motion stating that there was a criminal investigation into Andrew and Tristan related to human trafficking. We knew from Jump Street that these were just very unfair delay tactics.
We knew from Jump Street that these were just unfair delay tactics. Your thoughts, Crayons?
That they were unfair delay tactics.
Yes.
Yeah, that's ridiculous. I don't have the statute open in front of me, but the Department of Justice is requesting the stay. The Department of Justice, there is federal law that states that a civil case needs to be stayed if it could potentially interfere with a criminal investigation. So the Department of Justice requested a stay. Anything that's found in the discovery process during a civil case to potentially interfere with their investigation. So they requested a stay.
Yeah.
So the idea that it's a delay tactic is it's laughable. Absolutely hilarious.
Well, especially because of how standard this would be when there's criminal investigations going on for a civil lawsuit that's so closely related to be stayed. It's to say it's a desperate type delay tactic is really funny.
Well, I mean, it's coming from the Department of Justice. The Department of Justice wrote a letter to the judge requesting the stay. So basically, he's accusing the U.S. government of trying to cause a delay in a defamation case in Florida, which is hilarious. And let me start by stating this, because I think this is really important here. Joseph McBride is a lawyer, and lawyers, more than anyone in the world, understand the legal weight and significance of every single word and term that they use. So when you have a lawyer, especially one that's involved in a case, publicly describing and using words that confuse people, using words like charges when
Mm.
charges are only used for criminal matters, when he knows that it's civil, when saying that it's a case when it's a counterclaim, when saying it's a human trafficking case when it was not a human trafficking case. It was a counterclaim to their defamation case. So he's using terminology that he knows is wrong because he's a lawyer. He understands the weight of every single word that he uses. And I believe that he's purposefully using the wrong words because he knows how the public is going to interpret what he says. And he knows 99.9% of the people will never fact check anything he says, especially Tate's fan base. He's using terminology that is completely wrong. And as a lawyer, he would know that his terminology is incorrect. So that sets the stage right there.
Completely agree that he's I think just very deliberately trying to confuse the public, confuse the civil and criminal cases, and just really slimy, greasy stuff from a greasy man.
It's also important to understand that he started his video talking about a criminal investigation by the Department of Justice.
Yes.
That criminal investigation that is still ongoing has absolutely nothing to do with the defamation civil case. Nothing to apples and oranges here.
Yeah.
They are suing, the Tate brothers are suing one of the alleged victims in their Romanian trafficking case, alleging that she defamed them by giving statements to the Romanian authorities during her interview after their compound was raided. They're trying to claim that her statement was defamatory and that she conspired and defamed them again with her parents when she sent chat messages from Romania to her parents, I believe in Florida, telling them that they were going to escape while everyone was sleeping because they believed that they were trafficking women and they needed to get out of there. The Department of Justice criminal investigation has 0% to do with that. Two completely different things. So for him to start the video talking about the Department of Justice investigation, he knows exactly what he's doing.
Mm.
He knows the confusion that this is going to cause, and that has nothing to do with the civil case, other than the fact that the Department of Justice has requested a stay so that the discovery process doesn't interfere with anything that they're doing. Basically, they're saying, hey, we have something bigger cooking over here. This is the federal government. Please pump the brakes on your civil case so it doesn't interfere with what we're doing, because what we're doing is more important.
That's a really important point. And before you joined, before I started this video, I told the viewers to really watch what he's saying and his wording here, because his decision to immediately talk about and plant seeds about a criminal investigation involving human trafficking, I think is surely very deliberate, and that just plants that in the viewer's head for the rest of the video.
Yes. Well, okay. First and foremost, there is not a Florida human trafficking case against the Tate brothers. There is no human trafficking case against the Tate brothers in Florida or in the United States in any state. There is an investigation taking place in Florida. We don't know why. There is an investigation taking place in New York from the Department of Justice, and both New York and Florida's cases are criminal investigations. But an investigation is not a case. And again, words matter, and he understands the terminology here. So there is not a Florida human trafficking case. What you do have, and again, words matter, you have a defamation case that is civil, filed by the Tate brothers against their alleged victim due to what happened in Romania. That is a civil case filed by the Tate brothers. The Tate brothers are the plaintiffs. They filed the case. The defendants are the alleged victim from Romania, who just happens to be American, and her two parents. They're the defendants. She filed a countersuit, a countersuit or counterclaim against them, but it's all still part of the main defamation case. She's still the defendant in that case, even though she filed a counterclaim. What was dismissed were 6 out of the 7 claims out of her counterclaim. Again, there wasn't a human trafficking case. It was a counterclaim. What survived, I believe, was defamation and defamation per se. That's what survived. That's the same thing Tate is suing her for. So for them to make a big deal out of this, they've sued her for the exact same thing. So he's suing her for defamation. She's suing him for defamation. And the counterclaim was not dismissed. The case is not dead. It actually survived, and now it will move into the discovery process and then eventually lead to trial. And what moved forward is defamation, and I believe defamation per se. The exact same thing they sued her for that's moving forward. Now, all the claims that were dismissed, she gets 20 days to refile those claims because they were dismissed without prejudice. And it's also important to understand that during this process, this is a response to Tate's filing of a motion to dismiss. The judge was not reviewing evidence. The judge was reviewing the filings, the pleadings. So her lawyers put together the countersuit, which is the pleading, filed it with the court, and the judge is reviewing that to see if it met a legal standard. He wasn't reviewing to see if the evidence existed to prove this or that. He was reviewing, do the pleadings meet a specific legal standards to survive this motion to dismiss? And for all but the defamation, the answer was no. That's why they get a chance to refile them, because the filings themselves were not specific enough. So I wanted to lead with that because I know people will fall off during the stream. A lot of information, a lot of confusing information, but he understands the words that he's using. There's not a human trafficking case in Florida. There never was. Nothing is dead. The case continues. The counterclaim survived. I needed to clear all of that and explain all of that. So go ahead.
Just for something that some of my viewers might recall and something that's relevant to something you just said, how the judge in a motion to dismiss isn't reviewing the evidence and whether they're guilty is not the word, but I guess liable or not, but they're reviewing the claim and whether the claim is made properly. And this is relevant to, some might recall when the Tates were saying that a judge has ruled that the girl was lying in Florida.
Exactly.
Which wasn't. They were ruling that if it's true, they have to assume it's true when they're assessing the claims. Assuming it's true, the claims have been made properly to allege this claim.
Right. Think of it this way. To simplify this in terms of trying to understand what the judge was looking at. If you are writing a script for a movie and you write the script and you hand it to a producer and the producer says, this script is not good enough to make a movie yet. Go back and rewrite the script. That's essentially what happened. That's a simplification of what just happened. Awesome. The script writer brought the script to the producer, and the producer said, let's just say there's 7 different acts in the movie. This is Act 1 through 6. You need to rewrite these. These are not ready for a movie yet. But Act 7 in your script, this is perfect for a movie. So we'll go ahead and take Act 7, and we're going to start developing that now. But these other acts, 1 through 6, you need to rewrite these and bring them back to see if they're going to make it into the movie or not. That's a simplification of what just happened.
That's a really good analogy. I'm definitely going to steal that. That actually explains it very well. Okay, it might take a bit to get through this video because we haven't even seen close to all of the nonsense yet.
It's painful.
Yeah. So we'll have some fun with it. Let's see what McBride comes out with next.
But we pondered, what should we do? And then we decided to lean into the investigation, because to lean into the investigation is to lean into truth.
Okay, I need to get your thoughts on this. This is the last thing I commented on before you joined. Straight after that, McBride says, I can't even say this without laughing. So what we decided to do, and after bringing up this criminal investigation, what we decided to do was lean into the investigation, because to lean into the investigation is to, what did he say?
And the truth is
to lean into truth. I mean, what does that even mean? It's nonsense.
They didn't have a choice.
Yeah.
When the Department of Justice or the state of Florida launches an investigation, you don't get a chance to say, yeah, we're going to lean into it and just kind of make it. No, you don't have a choice. That's like saying, okay, I didn't pay my taxes, and the tax, I think they're in the U.S., I guess. So you can say the IRS or whatever tax authority is in your country. They come and they audit you because you're not paying your taxes, or they caught you cheating on taxes. And you're like, yeah, I'm going to lean into the audit. I decided to lean into the audit.
So brave of you.
What's that?
So brave of you. So
so brave of you. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. I'm gonna lean into the audit. Yeah.
Okay, we'll keep going. Every sentence so far is something stupid, but we'll try to get through this.
So, as a matter of first impression, we agreed to give prosecutors 60 days to investigate. 60 days turned into 6 months.
Okay. Okay. It really is every sentence. I mean, not even. It's every part of a sentence. Okay, so he just... I'm laughing so much because I know what this is really about, and what your response is going to be, kind of. So the next line he says is, so we decided to give prosecutors 60 days. He did. McBride decided to, apparently. And in 60 days, they came up with no charges. Thoughts, Crayons?
Wild. Yeah. So if you're under a criminal investigation, you do not have the leverage to put a time limit on them. There is no time limit whatsoever that you're going to put on them. They call the shots. If they're investigating you, prosecutors decide how in-depth they're going to investigate you and for how long they're going to investigate you. And they decide if they're going to prosecute you or not. No one else makes that decision. You don't lean into the investigation. You don't give them 60 days. You might agree to terms that they ask you. They may have asked them. I believe there was an initial stay that may have lasted for 60 days, and that might be what this came from. It may have been that they requested 60 days stay and they agreed to those terms, but you don't set those terms when you're under arrest. Listen, the fact that he's even trying to frame this as we're calling the shots is just laughable beyond belief. Keep in mind, this is the same lawyer involved in the case where they sued the wrong meta entity. When they sued Facebook, they sued the wrong meta entity. And not only did they sue the wrong meta entity, when they contacted them before the lawsuit, Meta informed them that it was the wrong entity. And they sued the wrong entity anyway. That's the same lawyer. This is the same lawyer who was scolded by a judge for apparently, and you can Google this, Joseph McBride. I don't know how you would find it. He was representing some of the January 6th guys who got arrested for whatever they did in the Capitol building in the USA. And I think he abandoned one of them like mid-trial or something like that and got scolded by the judge. I don't remember the details. You can look it up. But yeah, this guy is, when you think about bad lawyers and all the things that come with bad lawyers, like this guy comes to mind to me.
Yeah, that was one of my favorite parts.
And no charges ever came. A few weeks ago, on September 26th in Palm Beach, Florida, I argued that the human trafficking allegations, the RICO allegations, the fraud, coercion, emotional distress allegations should all be tossed out. Not just because Andrew and Tristan were never criminally prosecuted, but because the totality of the allegations against them have always been based in fiction.
Okay. So what he just said, and you may be able to shed some light on this, Crayons, of what's been argued in court. I'm not sure, but he just said that he argued in court that all these claims should be thrown out because there's been no criminal charges. What kind of take is that? That these civil claims should be thrown out because there hasn't been criminal charges yet in these ongoing cases?
Well, first and foremost, there are criminal charges in Romania.
I think I misquoted him. I think he said convictions. Sorry, hang on. Did he say let me just check that again. Did he say charges or convictions?
Criminally prosecuted, criminally prosecuted, but
they were never criminally prosecuted.
They are currently being criminally prosecuted in Romania for this particular alleged victim. And the fact that the investigations in the United States have not yet led to criminal prosecution is completely irrelevant to a civil claim made by someone who is claiming that they've been harmed. Those are here's the thing. He is relying on people not understanding the difference in the nuance between civil claims and criminal charges. So just to be very clear here, criminal charges are filed by a state or the government for breaking a law. If you're found guilty of a criminal charge, you generally face punishment or large fines. A civil claim is filed by private individuals, citizens, or organizations for harm or damages. And if you lose a civil claim, you get a judgment, you generally have to pay money. You're not risking jail time. Civil claims filed by this particular defendant against the Tate brothers, she's filing what she believes are claims because she says, hey, I have damages. I've been damaged by these guys, so I'm filing these claims. This is what I believe they did to me civilly. It has nothing to do with the Department of Justice if they decide to prosecute or not. Those are two totally different things. And as far as we know, we have no proof on the scope of what the Department of Justice is investigating for. We do know that one thing they're investigating for is human trafficking. We know that because it was in a particular document, but we don't know the full scope of that. But we do know that when the Department of Justice chooses to prosecute, and we don't know yet if they are going to prosecute them or not, but we do know that when the Department of Justice brings charges, they bring a lot of charges. So they're not going to just pop, if they choose to prosecute, they're not going to pop up with just human trafficking. They will drop a 1 trillion-ton shit hammer on these guys and make them fight for their lives in court. That's the way the Department of Justice works. This is the same group that took down Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell and so many others. So this is a major, the Southern District of New York is a big deal. They've taken down some big ones before, and this is who's investigating the Tate brothers. So yeah, again, laughable. Yeah, before you play that, I want to read this. It says, Judge scolds January 6th lawyer, but won't seek disciplinary action. And they have a picture of Joseph McBride. This is AP News. And it says, a federal judge of Washington reprimanded an attorney whose withdrawal from a January 6th defendant's case led to a delay in the man's trial, potentially keeping him behind bars longer. But the judge declined to refer him for disciplinary action. U.S. District Judge Trevor McFadden, an appointee of former President Donald Trump, suggested last month that he was considering referring attorney Joseph McBride to the court's Committee on Grievances, saying it appeared the attorney misled the court when he withdrew from a case of a man charged with assaulting officers during a riot. McBride withdrew from Christopher Quaglin's case last month, just weeks before the man's April trial date, because McBride said he needed to focus on another January 6th case. McBride told the judge that another attorney, Jonathan Gross, would take over, saying Gross knows Quaglin's case well, so on and so forth. So the judge scolded him, but unfortunately didn't discipline him. He didn't refer him for disciplinary action, which is unfortunate because this guy is getting away with things that he should be disciplined for. And according to Joseph McBride himself, unrelated to that, he has a bar complaint filed against him already. And I believe it's for his conduct regarding something for Andrew Tate specifically. Yeah, I just wanted to put that out there because I know this is going to be clipped and he's probably going to try to add this to the lawsuit against us. Yeah. So I wanted to put this out there for clarity regarding the January 6th situation, how he was scolded by a judge previously.
I've heard some other things regarding his clients that were part of the January 6th thing as well. I'll put it that way. So that's just the tip of the iceberg with that. Oh boy. Okay, let's keep going. Let's see what McBride has to say next. We've made it through 1 minute 14 and it's been 100% garbage so far. But maybe he'll come out with a good point here. Let's see.
Because the totality of the allegations against them have always been based in fiction, not in fact. So we had to wait about a month for the judge to rule. And today, folks, the court has spoken. And the verdict is devastating for the other side. Judge G. Joseph Curley has just issued a landmark ruling dismissing every major charge that's been used to smear Andrew and Tristan Tate for the past 2 years. The so-called human trafficking...
Okay, so he just said that Joseph Curley dismissed every major charge in the human trafficking case. So he dismissed every major charge. So this is, again, very deliberate wording, I think.
Yeah. Number one, there were no criminal charges in Florida. Civil claims are not charges. They're never charges. So for a lawyer to use the word charges, he knows that means criminal, not civil. They have not been charged with any offenses in Florida or in the United States at this point. So that is absolutely false. The Honorable Judge Curley did not dismiss any criminal charges.
And this is a theme, I guess, across his video, his post. And then the next bit is when it gets a bit crazy. We'll see what he says next.
The so-called human trafficking case, it's dead. The RICO conspiracy case, dead. Allegations of fraud, coercion, emotional distress, dead. This isn't just...
Okay, so the viewers just heard the part where he says the human trafficking case, dead. The RICO case, dead. Allegations of fraud and coercion, dead. So, do you think dead is an appropriate way to describe a civil lawsuit counterclaim being dismissed without prejudice?
Well, first and foremost, it wasn't a case.
Well,
The case, but it's important again.
Yeah,
Words matter, especially when they're coming from a lawyer. The case is the Tate brothers have sued this woman and her parents for defamation and defamation per se, and I believe civil conspiracy and a couple of other claims. That's the case. She filed a counterclaim or a countersuit, and nothing is dead. Nothing is dead. The countersuit is actually moving forward, and it will go to discovery and trial. But what was dismissed with prejudice, which means they can file again, are the claims of human trafficking, conspiracy to violate the U.S. human trafficking laws, Florida civil remedy, civil conspiracy, malicious prosecution, and intentional infliction of emotional distress. She has 20 days to refile that again. And here's the thing, and the Tates have done this the entire time throughout their process. When a judge dismisses something, a claim, or a defendant without prejudice, you can file an amended motion and bring it back repeatedly. Now, there does come a point to where it does look like, you're maliciously filing something if you're not bringing back new, if you're not improving it. If you just keep filing the same garbage over and over, it could look like you're weaponizing something or maliciously filing. But until a judge dismisses something with prejudice, you can continue to refile. When it's done with prejudice, it's over. It's done. You're not suing that person for this thing ever again. It's not happening.
And that's a good point, and something that I didn't maybe consider to emphasize his use of the word case. I guess because some of his other stuff is so ridiculous that I didn't even think of that he's using the word case, and case is dead. It's very misleading, especially when the defamation claims are going ahead.
Yes, they survived. Yeah. See, the whole thing is misleading. His tweets are misleading about it. The video is incredibly misleading. And again, if this came from one of the brothers themselves, first and foremost, they also understand the terminology. But because this comes from a lawyer, and this isn't the first time he's done things like this. No. He has a history of this sort of thing.
Yeah.
Because this is coming from a lawyer, and he went to school to understand the significance of every legal word that he chooses. So he's not accidentally choosing the word case or choosing the word charges or choosing the word like landmark ruling or dismissing every major charge. Like that, he's not making a mistake. That's like, oops, I messed up. He knows exactly what he's writing. Yeah. He knows those words. He understands the terminology. The Florida human trafficking case against Andrew and Tristan Tate is dead, he said. Breaking news.
Yeah.
There is no Florida human trafficking case. Yeah, this man he's shameless. He's absolutely shameless. And the irony is, if you go to his Twitter account, all he talks about is the truth and Christ and religion. That's all he talks about. The truth and Christ and religion.
And the thing is, when he starts talking about criminal cases, and then he starts saying the human trafficking case is dead, a casual viewer is going to think, oh, I saw Ron DeSantis on the news and Attorney General James Uthmeier saying they're investigating. That's dead. That's what he's doing. That's what he's trying to do.
Well, I mean, if you go read the comments, that's what it is. People understand that. That's how people interpret the things that he knows exactly how they're going to interpret it, because the average person, and you can see this if you go read the comments, the average person doesn't understand. They're not following this. And the majority of his fans, and I don't know what the actual number is, but based on the 3 years that I've been exchanging comments with his fan base on the internet, I would go as far as say 95% of them don't understand the difference between a charge or a conviction, or an accusation or a criminal charge. Most of them don't understand because they love to say things like, well, I can charge you for anything I want. You can be charged because I can accuse you of anything. No, to be criminally charged, evidence has to exist, evidence that leads the prosecutors to believe that they have a reasonable chance of getting a conviction. Evidence has to exist to criminally charge someone. Is it enough evidence to convict them of a crime and convince a judge or jury beyond all reasonable doubt? That's a whole other conversation. But evidence has to exist before you're criminally charged. For him to make these statements, number one, here's my theory on how this works. Because we've seen this for the past 3 years. Something happens and they put misinformation out like this. They use terminology that's confusing, it's wrong information. That becomes the new narrative. That's the new story. It doesn't matter if they come back later and they add additions to this, or they make a second or third tweet adding clarity, or if they come back and delete it, it doesn't matter. The original breaking news statement becomes the story. And they send this information, they send all this misinformation and the confusing terminology, they send out press releases to the media. And when you have journalists who do not do due diligence and that they don't fact check them on every single word that they say, they will continue to push out misinformation. We just saw it with the New York Times. The New York Times is a pretty respectable organization and they do a pretty good job, but they quoted as saying, which came directly from him, I believe, that said there was insufficient evidence. The judge determined that there was insufficient evidence when that is verifiably false. And if they would have ran that past their legal team at the New York Times, they would have realized that, oh, the judge wasn't reviewing the evidence. He was reviewing the filings, the pleadings. This isn't the stage to review the evidence. The judge did not say there's insufficient evidence. The pleadings, and as a matter of fact, just to show you how sloppy and how little people pay attention, on the second page of the filing itself, it says the standard of review. They start the entire document on page 2 telling people how this decision was made. And let me read this. It says standard of review. This is page 2 of the actual document. A motion to dismiss tests whether the plaintiff has stated a cause of action. When determining the merits of a motion to dismiss, the trial court's consideration is limited to the 4 corners of the complaint, the allegations of which must be accepted as true and considered in light most favorable to the non-moving party. And then they reference case law. Then it goes on to say, considering the allegations within the 4 corners of the FAC and accepting such allegations as true and considered in the light most favorable to the non-moving party, the court makes the following findings. And then they go on to talk about the findings here. And above that, before they say that, it says procedural and factual background. And it says, this court heard the parties' present arguments through counsel and has reviewed the motions and briefs submitted by respective parties regarding the motion to dismiss the counterclaim. At no time did they mention evidence or insufficient evidence. They reviewed the briefs and the motions and the pleadings that were filed. And for a respectable organization like the New York Times to quote insufficient evidence because that came from either their PR from the Wall Street Journal. That is
sorry.
Yeah.
Right, just so you know, I got that screenshot on screen of the section. So for my viewers, this is the New York Times. This is a section from the New York Times article that just came out that you're reading on screen that Crowns is referencing.
Yeah. Now, it is accurate in terms of legal grounding and specificity because what this decision means is the filings were not specific enough for the claims to survive the motion to dismiss. So specificity, 100%. Legal grounding, 100%. Lack sufficient evidence, 100% misinformation taken directly from Tate's team, guaranteed. And that is so reckless.
Yeah.
So I expect that from somebody like the Daily Mail, but not the New York Times. I actually sent the authors of that. I sent them a message and I said, "Hey, you have a technical issue here," and I explained it to them. Well, we'll see if they correct it or not. But again, no one cares about corrections. Whatever the story is when it first goes out, be it a tweet, a breaking news tweet, be it the first thing that hits, the first thing somebody reads on the New York Times, that's the story. So for journalists to recklessly parrot this stuff without fact checking things that come from these guys, I think is reckless.
Yeah.
It's incredibly reckless. And number one, this is another reason why trust in the mainstream media has eroded so much because of sloppy journalism. Because if they do this for this tiny little thing, imagine where else they've dropped the ball. Imagine where else these journalists have completely not paid attention to the nuance of something. Right? This is why people don't trust the mainstream media anymore.
She's
Wow,
quoted the lawyer here, and it's just words that have come directly from McBride.
Yeah.
It's disappointing.
That's
I've enjoyed some of the journalists reporting in some other stories, but this is a blunder.
Yeah, big time. So it's funny. As I was mentioning that, I got a message. They're going to discuss it with the team.
Okay, well, yeah. I guess I'll let everyone know that if that is amended, then we'll give them credit for that at least. But yeah, these things you can't just quote lawyers without checking judges without checking if that's what the judge said.
Again, words matter.
Yeah.
People come at me all the time and they say, "Oh, semantics," or no. When you're talking about a legal outcome, words matter. There's glossaries and dictionaries and all this stuff. Like the words that you choose, even if they're slightly tweaked, can mean a completely different thing. So by saying that there's insufficient evidence, you have now reframed the entire conversation that no evidence exists to substantiate her claims at all. And you just slap the victim right in the face.
Yeah.
And the media does this over and over and over and over and over again. It's sloppy journalism. Hopefully, they will amend it.
When this happens, so the Tates always talk about how evil and the mainstream media is the Matrix. Whenever they make these blunders and accidentally report what the Tates team have said, we've seen it with the Daily Mail before, the Tates are very fast to share that article. They shared this New York Times article, and McBride did too. Because, oh, look, they falled for it, basically, and they shared the article.
Yeah, here's the thing. They're a respected organization, so hopefully they will make that tiny little tweak, because words do matter. But I fully expect other media outlets to run the exact same thing and talk about insufficient evidence, because they've done it in the past. I've lost count of how many journalists have gotten this wrong from the very beginning. And listen, if you're a journalist or you work for one of these outlets and you're listening to this, you have to fact check them. If you are getting press releases or tweets coming from their legal team or their PR spokespeople, you have to fact check every single word that they use, because they have a history of not telling the truth or spreading misinformation regarding outcomes and things that are actually happening. They've been doing this for 3 years.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. We've seen it time and time again.
Yeah.
Let's see what McBride says next.
Yes,
this
Miriam,
isn't just speculation.
This
is a sign.
Because Mircea based his off of what McBride said.
Oh, did he do a correction, did he?
I'm going to give... No, he did not do a correction.
Oh, right.
I didn't see Mircea make a correction. I made a correction in his post. I will give foreign journalists the benefit of the doubt. If you're not paying attention, or maybe the U.S. is a different system and they do things differently, I give foreign journalists the benefit of the doubt. But when you get things wrong like that, when you're talking about evidence and there is a correction, like you need to do the right thing and correct it. So I was a little bit disappointed with that, because he was corrected and he should have, in my opinion, he should have at least noted that evidence wasn't reviewed, because that's very important.
Oh, it's a major
This is why people don't come forward.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Hey, why don't more women come forward when somebody does something bad to them? Gee, I have no fucking idea. Maybe because they're treated like shit from the governments, from the states, from journalists, from all media corporations, from the public. This is why sometimes it's just easier to stay silent. And this is why I believe, so many, in addition to the shame and the stigma and everything else that comes with it, the public and media and everything that just gets everything wrong and reframes things to make the women look terrible. Man, it's just awful. And I didn't realize how bad it was until I started looking into this case, and then did look into other cases after this. Yeah, it's terrible.
Well, and that's the frustrating.
We need to do better as a society.
When you see this stuff from journalists, and the Daily Mail have been bad ones in the UK, we've seen some shockers from them.
Yeah, they're bad.
Yeah. We're talking about serious allegations and cases involving allegations of sex crimes and trafficking, minors in some cases. And just for me and you, we're just people on Twitter. But we understand how serious this is, we're not going to rush anything. Like, because this is so important to get this, getting something wrong like this can effectively make a potential victim's time harder. When you see, like, mainstream media with more resources than we could dream of, just rushing to get a story out with cases like
Yeah.
this, it's really sick.
Well, again, how you do what's that old Japanese proverb? You know, how you do one thing is how you do everything. And when I see the mistakes that journalists and mainstream media have made on this case, I'm just like, wow, what else have you guys botched? You know, like if you get this stuff wrong, and it's stuff that's, if you would look into it, it's pretty simple. But the fact that you're not looking into it and you're just like posting just random stuff sent to you, some of these media outlets, they will just run whatever press release is sent to them. Zero fact checking. And I just have to wonder throughout the entire time I've been alive, what else have you guys blundered? What else have you just blindly published that's not been correct?
I saw a chat from Iris, and always a pleasure to have you here, Iris, and your takes as, I believe, a legal student, I think you've told us before, but, and you mentioned Mircea isn't a lawyer, he can make mistakes, and I agree to an extent, but,
Oh, sure.
and this is more relevant to the New York Times piece than Mircea, but when you're, well, he might have said it, I can't remember his wording, but when they're quoting a judge, like if they said Tate's representatives say this, and we've seen plenty of articles saying that, and they're saying rubbish, and I don't mind that so much if they say Tate's representative said this, and then show an alternative interpretation, as in what actually the ruling was, or what the opposition lawyers said, or whatever. But when they say a judge ruled this is where I have a problem.
Yeah, 100%, man. And here's the crazy thing. Professionals, people who do this for a living, should slow down and make sure that things are verified, especially coming from these people, because they know historically what's happened. If I were to make these same mistakes, I get taken to task. People will call me out for things that look. So when you're making a post on Twitter, we have a limited amount of characters. And there's so much confusing information between multiple cases and multiple alleged victims in different countries. And if you just say something that can be interpreted the wrong way by accident, people will take you to task for that for years. But then these guys would just blatantly put out misinformation, one after the other, after another, after another, after another, after another, after another. And the media will just post it and just get stuff wrong along the way. Nobody cares. Nobody gives a shit. But you say something wrong, not deliberately, but you just just type something incorrectly that just leads people in the wrong direction for whatever, even just by 1%. They will crucify you for that for years. It's wild.
Yeah.
Absolutely wild.
It does sometimes feel like we're held to a higher standard than mainstream media. Maybe not legally, but
we are.
Yeah.
Well, hey, who's getting sued?
Yeah.
Listen, I can say this with absolute certainty. You and myself and some of the other people here, we have covered this case with more accuracy than all of the mainstream media combined.
Yeah.
Combined. With more accuracy, more details, more accuracy, more explanation to help people understand what's going on, better than any news organization out there. And we ended up getting sued.
Because in my opinion, we were too accurate. So there you go.
Well, and they know, yeah. Good luck suing the BBC. Good luck suing the New York Times. Good luck, they have an entire floor of lawyers at their office. You know what I mean? Good luck.
Although I wouldn't be surprised if they file some joke lawsuit against the BBC, like they did against Meta and all that.
For optics.
Yeah.
For optics, I expect them to. Yeah. I pride myself on the fact that the information that I put out there has been correct. I take great pride in that I have verified and triple verified a lot of these things and have spent time learning and have talked to Romanian lawyers and US lawyers and UK lawyers and have really made an effort to make sure we get this stuff right. Now, did I predict everything correctly? Of course not. I'm not Nostradamus. Until Richard Grenell went to Romania or met with whatever he did, he met with the minister there. Until he met with that minister, that was a game changer. That completely changed. I can't predict anything at this point.
Yeah.
When the case went through the preliminary chamber, normally in Romania, the preliminary chamber only lasts for a couple of months, and then the trial's announced. No one expected the preliminary chamber to drag on for 6 or 7 months. That's ridiculous. So, once you move into the preliminary chamber, okay, yeah, there's probably going to be a trial by the end of the year. And the media was reporting that as well, because that's normally what happens. So you might get a prediction wrong here and there.
I get it all the time, especially my comments on my, say, community posts and maybe videos on here. Oh, this is why you're being sued because you've been lying for 3 years. I was like, name one lie. I never can. Oh,
Yeah, name one.
you know them all. I don't need to tell you. Go on, name one.
Yeah. The last time we had the stream, somebody asked, why are you always mocking tater tots? Why do you call them tater tots? It's because we've been dealing with you guys for 3 years. And you, as a fan of the brothers, have access to all of the same information that I have. And the majority of the documents that are out there are for public release. So you can see what the judges have actually said. And we posted a lot of that you can get directly from the court websites. So you have access to the same information. And 3 years later, for you still not to understand simple things like a charge versus a conviction, or what's required to hold someone under judicial control, or what it means to have judicial control. Like, you can go on the internet and get this stuff in English, and it's not very difficult even to understand. Like, how do you not even understand what defamation is? Like, how fucking stupid are you? And pardon my French on that, but how incompetent are you that you can't even go look up something as simple as defamation and then learn that in the United States they have a different standard of defamation if you're a celebrity or a public figure, like the Tate brothers. There's a whole nother level called actual malice. So how can you not learn what defamation is and then have the audacity to come into our groups and chats and spaces and say this is why you're getting sued? No, you're wrong. For 3 years, you've been wrong about everything.
Yeah.
All right, you got to move on. I will just rage on this forever. So you need to move on.
Oh yeah, it's like that. It's like that. When I watched this video for the first time, I was trying to do like a Twitter post, and I was just like, I'm just gonna wait for the stream because there's so much rubbish in this video that I can't communicate it in a post. Like, no one will read it.
Yeah.
So, all right. I'm gonna go back a bit.
Judge Curley ruled that the allegations against Andrew and Tristan failed on every level. No force, no fraud, no coercion, and therefore no human trafficking.
Okay, so Judge Curley ruled that the allegations against Andrew and Tristan failed on every level. No fraud, no force, no fraud, no coercion, therefore no human trafficking. So, to me, that's talking as if he's assessed the evidence and determined that there was no evidence.
First and foremost, I need to say that I cannot determine if human trafficking took place. That's not for me to decide. But that's also not for the judge to decide at this stage. A judge did not decide that human trafficking did or did not occur. The judge decided if the filings met a particular standard. The judge is looking to see if the filings meet the four corners of the complaint, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Basically, were the filings specific enough to survive a motion to dismiss? At no time did a judge review the evidence to determine if a crime was committed. Number one. Number two, this is a civil case. He will never determine if a crime was committed. He will, even in the best case scenario, if they refile and it survives the next motion to dismiss, and this moves on to discovery and ultimately to trial, he's still not going to determine if a crime was committed. He will determine if it's more likely than not that the allegations that she's put forward, that they violated these particular Trafficking Victims Protection Reauthorization Act, etc., is it more likely than not that happened? And even then, it's still a civil claim. It's a civil tort. The civil claim, they call it a tort, T-O-R-T. Did it more likely than not happen, essentially? So if they can prove at that time through evidence at a trial that if you were to put a percentage on it, 51% did this happen, then a judge will make a judgment against the Tate brothers on that. Or if they're, for the Tate brothers that are suing her for defamation, if they can prove by 51% that she defamed them, then they'll put a judgment against her. But he's not going to determine if a crime was committed, because a crime is something else. A crime requires a charge, and a charge is filed by the state or government. And the standard for that is beyond a reasonable doubt, which is incredibly high. If you were to put a percentage on it, you're talking 99%, maybe even 100%, which means there's no other logical explanation other than they committed the crime. And this judge for a civil case does not make that determination. He cannot make that determination. So McBride was wrong again.
And this language, I think, just the context of the way he set up this whole video as well. First talking about a criminal case, talking about charges, referring to these claims as charges. So then that's when he says these things, which this one on its own might be maybe, I don't know if nitpicky is the word, but not the most egregious one. But when you put it in context with everything he's said up to this point, it's making the viewer think, oh, that human trafficking charges have been dropped in Florida from Ron DeSantis.
He knows exactly what he's saying when he chooses these words.
Mm.
He's a lawyer. He understands the words. He went to school to learn how to use the correct terminology. Because when you are making these filings, when you are pleading, when you are standing in a court of law in front of a judge, being paid to represent your client, every word you say matters. Because your terminology can mean the difference between a judgment or not judgment. Or if it's a criminal matter, it can mean the difference between your client going to jail or not. So he knows exactly what the words mean. So for him to use this sort of terminology, I believe is just completely reckless. You know what though? Because it's him and because we've seen a history of this stuff in the past, I'm not surprised. He knows how this is going to be interpreted, and he knows, in my opinion, exactly what these words mean. He went to the university to learn all of this stuff. He passed the bar exam. He knows what these words mean. Yeah. He knows what they mean. How hard would it be for them just to say exactly what happened? Like, hey, Florida, breaking news. Florida judge dismisses 6 out of 7 claims, or whatever the number is, for Jane Doe against the Tate brothers. Here's what was dismissed. Here's what survived.
It's a W.
Then you know what? They would have received the same number of views. It would still be a win. You know what I mean? It's still a win. We wouldn't be holding this space. The misinformation spin that's put on this stuff is like, why are you doing this, man? And I fully believe the whole purpose of this is just to mislead people and to continue this public narrative to try to build this entire story of like the entire world is conspiring against these guys. And we're going to fight truth and justice because we have God on our side. And God and justice is going to win. Go look through this guy's Twitter feed. He sounds like a crazy person.
The most common reply that I've seen to his, and I think Tate's post as well, which we'll get to later, his post as well, is, oh, can you go out? Can you lay charges against her? What happens to her for her lying?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, dude, there's people talking about killing her under Tate's post. Did you see that?
Yeah.
Yeah. People are talking about, getting rid of her. And I don't want you to get demonetized on here, but people are talking about unaliving her under Andrew's post about this stuff. So when you put out wrong information that reframes the story to make this woman or any woman look like she did something wrong, you will have unhinged people that might want to cause harm. This is how you have psychopaths showing up and trying to hurt people. You look at the fires that Candace Owen is stoking right now. Yeah. There's somebody, when you have a fan base of millions of people, all it takes is one unhinged person who says, well, I'm gonna handle this for them. I believe they're putting this woman and her parents in grave danger. She's already gone into hiding. She's been in hiding for 3 years. She's had death threats and threats of violence. People have showed up at her mother's house. And now there's people under Tate's post talking about this thing. They're talking about unaliving her. Multiple people are talking about unaliving her and questioning why she's still alive. Like, that is what you're creating with this. That's why we try to push back and try to set the record straight on this. And it's just so reckless, man. It's so reckless. And the fact that I know that these guys are not going to get into any trouble whatsoever for putting this information out there, that just pisses me off too.
Yeah.
I think that within itself is shameful. McBride should end up with another bar complaint against him for this because he's putting her in danger. The comments under the post prove that they're putting her in danger.
Yeah.
People are talking about unaliving this particular girl because of this information. It's reckless, man. It's so reckless.
Yep. Okay. Let's see what McBride has next.
The judge said what we've been saying from the start. Andrew and Tristan, innocent.
Oh, I literally need to stop this every 6 seconds. Literally, as soon as I press play, his next line. The judge said what we've been saying all along. Andrew and Tristan Tate innocent.
The judge did not say that. The judge would not say that.
No.
This is a civil complaint. Okay, let's just say in a best case scenario, he's not going to say these guys are guilty. He doesn't determine innocent or guilt. He determines that there's enough if there's enough evidence, if this goes to trial, there's enough evidence that could, by 51%, could lead him to believe that it was more likely than not that it happened. He did not say that they were innocent. He would never say that they're innocent, or he would never say that they're guilty. That's not what that's not what civil claims are about. And again, he knows this.
Yep.
He knows this. And that makes it that much more infuriating because it puts her in that much more danger. Because it makes her look like the judge claimed again, right? Like she lied. That's what this whole thing revolves around. Just like before. Oh, the judge said she lied. No, the judge didn't say that. And you just put her in danger again.
Yeah.
So reckless. All of the journalists and media organizations who get this wrong and say insufficient evidence, they're also putting her at risk.
100%. Okay, we'll get back to McBride, and it's no fault of ours, I think, that we're taking so long to get through this video. But we're 2 minutes 22.
Yeah.
Andrew and Tristan, innocent. Relationships, consensual. Business discussions, legitimate.
Oh, okay. The judge said, apparently, relationships, consensual.
Business discussions,
legitimate. Like, this has nothing to do with what happened. And you're saying the judge said this.
Well, hold on. There is an element of truth to that. Give me 1 second here.
Yeah, sure.
If I remember when I listened to the video, McBride framed that in a weird way. He specifically says the counterclaim sets forth allegations of a romantic relationship, travel, and business offers, and lacks the specificity of fraud, force, or coercion required to set forth a cause of action under the applicable statutes. So he specifically says the counterclaim sets forth allegations. So what he's saying is the filings are not specific enough to meet the standard to make him believe that it could have been force, fraud, or coercion. Now, that being said, I was on a Zoom call. I believe it was their last hearing. It was a public. By the way, almost all of their hearings, you can come in on a Zoom call and listen. The judge was having a problem, and he brought this up multiple times. And I'll lead by saying I'm not criticizing the judge here. I'm just explaining what actually happened during the Zoom call. The judge said multiple times that he was having a problem with the claim that force, fraud, or coercion was used. And a lawyer from the National Center of Exploitation had to explain that modern day human trafficking is based on deception and how the whole lover boy thing works, right? You pretend to be a boyfriend, you butter them up, you build up the relationship, then you lure them in, that sort of thing. And that's usually built around fraud. And the lawyer from the National Center of Exploitation was talking about, that constitutes, or that it's the same thing as fraud, basically, right? So you have deception, and that's how it works into fraud. So in the US, they're very strict on force, fraud, or coercion. Modern methods of trafficking, that deception method falls into fraud. And the judge said multiple times that he was having trouble with that. So James Smith was in that call too. He says, it was the last one where McBride called Danny a young lady and she snapped at him. That got a little heated. That was interesting. But the judge he even said, he says, you can see where I'm having problems with this. And he even said, because she went over there on her own free will. And the lawyer had to explain how she was deceived, allegedly, to go over there. It's not that she just went on her own free will. She went there thinking something else. That was a deception. That was the fraud. So based on the pleadings and the filings, it looks like the judge still didn't agree with that.
Yeah.
So they're going to have to either reword this in a way where the judge goes, okay, yeah, I see it. Or the judge is just going to, he makes the decisions in his courtroom. So if he draws the line and he doesn't believe that deception is fraud in his courtroom, then he calls the shots in there. I don't know. And again, I'm not saying anything negative about him, but just hearing that conversation, and James Smith, he was listening as well. I see him in the chat. And James, let me know if you have the same feeling. Based on the conversations that were happening, and I could be completely wrong here, but it didn't sound like this particular judge has much experience regarding human trafficking. Maybe he does, I don't know. Or at least maybe, modern day human trafficking where, lover boy method is used, right? More deception stuff is used. Maybe he's used to just normal, people being kidnapped, put in shipping containers type of human trafficking. I don't know, but that was the feeling that I got. And McBride, who was there, he kept trying to paint this picture of, prostitutes being drugged up and kept against their will in hotel rooms. That was the picture that McBride was painting. And the lawyer that was with the National Center of Sexual Exploitation had to explain how deception is used. And she went on to explain how the brothers would teach these methods and talk about how they would lure women in through these romantic relationships. And she even brought up war room chats where he was, bragging about how he was isolating, I believe it was Yasmina Pinkoff. So she brought up war room chats and other things that they were talking about. But the judge doesn't seem that interested in, because he even says in here, other unidentified women, because they brought up other women that have been through this situation with them. And the judge says, further, the allegations in general as to, when he put in quotes, other unidentified women without any specificity in the allegations is found to be without relevance to the specific actions. So again, the filings were not specific enough. So I don't know if this is just, he's an old school judge and this is the way he sees it, or I don't know if his experience with human trafficking is, based around, literally women being held against their will or, drugged up in a hotel room. I don't know what his experience is, but he even said he was having trouble with the way this was being presented in terms of like deception and all of that. James Smith says he kind of agrees. He says, yeah, it sounded like he didn't know much about the modern type. I'm not alone in thinking that. And he even said multiple times, he was like, yeah, I don't, you can see where I'm having a problem with this, he said. And again, this is all court record. I saw somebody, because I mentioned this in a tweet, and some idiot tagged McBride and said that I was calling the judge incompetent, which I did not do and I would never do. Just the absurdity of his fan base is just incredible.
I'm curious on your thoughts, because and we can only speculate, but based on this ruling, and what the judge had to say about the coercion, and based on your reporting of the Zoom call and what James has corroborated with the judge having problem with the coercion being used as fraud, hypothetically.
Deception.
Yeah, deception.
Deception uses fraud.
Deception use. Thank you for deception uses fraud, which we could see potentially like someone could be charged and prosecuted criminally for that. But if this judge doesn't see it that way, my speculation on this is what might end up happening is, if this judge just doesn't budge on this, what could end up happening is these claims about the trafficking could end up going away, and they could just end up honing in and focusing on the defamation claims, which we'll get to later with some examples of how I think are very slam dunk. Do you think that might be the case, that they might struggle with this?
Well, yeah, absolutely. I mean, if they presented, if they put everything in the filings to try to explain it to the judge, and the judge isn't on the same page regarding, what he defines as human trafficking based on, his interpretation of the law. And again, the judge, he's a judge. He's earned that seat. He's earned that position. So he gets to interpret the law based on his interpretation. It's his courtroom. He calls the shots. So if his interpretation does not agree and this ends up being dismissed, keep in mind, though, he dismissed without prejudice. So he's not saying, I'm not hearing it. He's saying that you need to write a better script for your movie. Right? Like I made that analogy earlier. He didn't say, because if he dismisses with prejudice, that means get this shit out of my courtroom and never bring it back. But without prejudice means like, hey, you can file this again and try to explain this in a better manner so I can be on the same page with you. Right. So he's trying to give them an opportunity. And he's done the same thing for both sides. He's done this for Tate before, and now he's doing this for them. It's part of the process. All of this is part of the process. I have no proof of this, but just based on my conversations with some lawyers, and I've seen the Tate brothers do this as well, it is a legal tactic when you are filing a lawsuit or a counterclaim to throw a ton of shit against the wall, with the sole intention of overwhelming the other side and making them fight a bunch of claims, knowing that that's going to increase the likelihood that some of them are going to stick, versus just coming forward with one or two claims and letting the other side just focus entirely on those. And then you run the risk of both of those getting shut down. Again, I'm speculating, but it's highly possible that because the defamation moved forward, and that's not going to really change the amount of money, because this is a civil case, so she's suing for money. That's not going to change. Like, because these guys have such a large reach, they're celebrities. They have, the things that they say that she's alleging, how they defamed her, they went out to tens of millions of people. So, the millions of dollars that she's suing for, it's really not going to make that big of a difference. And like, if the judge, if they finally don't accept the trafficking allegations and all of the trafficking claims and some of these others, I don't think it's going to matter that much, because this is a financial decision. She can still sue them for $5 million for defamation. Some people get, celebrities. Sometimes, they can get hosed for loads of money for defamation cases alone. So I don't know. It could have been a legal tactic. The Tates did the exact same thing. They come in, they throw a ton of shit against the wall. They sued the U.S. Marine. They sued one of the alleged victims who doesn't even live in the USA. They sued the parents of the girl. They threw all of these allegations against the wall, and some of them stuck, some of them didn't. And I think that's kind of what my opinion is, that could be happening here. Like, hey, we're going to throw all this shit against the wall. Some of it's going to survive. Some of it's not going to survive. And the stuff that survives, we'll move forward on that. That's my opinion.
Yep, and we could very well end up with a I think brutal defamation claim and just keep it at $5 million. I see that very, very possible.
Based on defamation, and here's an interesting thing: they are public figures, so the standard for defamation against them is very high, very high. It's a different standard than the defamation against her. So, in order for them to claim defamation, that she defamed them, they're going to have to prove that what she said was false, and she knew it was false when she said it. And I don't think they're going to be able to do that. Very high standard. However, for her suing them for defamation, all she has to prove is that they made a false statement and presented it as fact. So all of the times that they went on all the podcasts, all the tweets, all the videos, all the live streams where they said that she's accused 6 other men of human trafficking, or she accused this man of this or that, and this man killed himself because of her. They presented these false statements as fact. Now, obviously, I'm not the judge on this, but those are pretty, if I've ever seen a case of defamation, a clear case, that's it. When you're presenting false statements as fact and you're publishing it somewhere, you said it publicly, that is what defamation is. They don't have that high standard with her because she's not a public figure. She's a normal person. So it's a lower standard. So they're going to have a harder time getting a judgment against her, and she's going to have it easier. So it's in her favor in this, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, the reason they're claiming she defamed them was, number one, because after their compound was raided, she gave statements to the Romanian authorities. So first and foremost, that's called privileged, meaning that you're not supposed to be able to be sued for giving a statement to the police. So I'm surprised this has even survived that long. And when it goes to trial, it probably won't. And the other thing that they're suing her for is because she was sending text messages to her parents saying, we're going to escape when everybody's sleeping because we think they're trafficking women. So that's a private information that wasn't published. So none of this stuff was published publicly. So I think they're going to struggle to meet that out of the gate. And number two, if she believed that they were trafficking women or they were trying to traffic her, how are they going to prove that what she said was false? Especially when they've been charged with human trafficking and prosecutors in Romania have uncovered, 40 plus alleged victims? Yeah, I think they're going to struggle in trial to get a judgment against her. Again, who knows? The judge could surprise us, but it's a higher bar for them than it is for her. I wanted to add some clarity to that.
Absolutely. Okay, let's get back to McBride. Let's see what he had to say next.
Business discussions, legitimate. Folks, there never was a crime.
There never was a crime. Even that statement, like every word of this. There never was a crime. We're talking about a civil lawsuit. I'm not on camera, but I'm face palming.
Entire narrative that the media ran with for the past 3 years. The fabricated Romanian story that turned 2 innocent men of influence into global villains has collapsed under the weight of the law.
He loves doing this and pretending that this lawsuit, these civil claims, that the criminal cases are completely reliant on them. He's talking as if this civil case has collapsed. The criminal cases have collapsed.
Completely unrelated. Completely unrelated. Apples and oranges.
I'll keep going because it's just him using the same tactics a bit over and over now. So we'll see if
Yeah.
see if he has any new ones.
Under the weight of the law, the human trafficking case against Andrew and Tristan Tate in Florida, as of today, is dead.
More repetition, but the human trafficking case against Andrew and Tristan in Florida, as of today, is dead.
In the water.
Is dead in the water. And I've paused him on a really disturbing facial expression, which is probably appropriate. But yeah, more of the same, but just really misleading. If he keeps kind of repeating himself, I might just keep going through to the end, unless he comes up with anything new.
This ruling just doesn't end a case. It ends years of lies.
This is so frustrating. This whole video. This ruling doesn't just end the case. No, it doesn't end the case. At all. Not just end the case. Oh my god.
He's just misrepresenting what's happening. Like at an egregious level.
It's outrageous. We've got 32 seconds left.
Defamation, unjust imprisonment, restriction of movements, and slander. The entire global campaign to silence, jail, defame, and harm Andrew and Tristan Tate has backfired. It's over.
So, okay, this is a part of the narrative that we haven't covered yet, that he kind of said in the tweet, in the text.
Yeah, and while you're loading that up, I just want to add some more clarity to like a civil case.
Yeah, sure.
A civil case is just, every step is procedural. Every step is procedural, and both sides can file multiple motions for various reasons, including, arguing against the way certain things were filed or the way that things were done or whatever. So step by step is procedural. And the next step for this particular case is that it's going to move to discovery. That's the next step, both for their case and for the counterclaim regarding defamation. Those are going to move to discovery. Now, even when it goes to discovery, that doesn't actually mean that it's going to trial. Even though there is they have a management order. So the court puts out a court management order, and they'll put a trial date on there. So of course, Tate's fans don't understand any of this. So when you have a case management order, they'll put all of these dates in a spreadsheet, essentially, and say, by this date, by this date, by this date, by this date, we're going to do this, by this date, and on this date, we're going to have a trial. All those dates mean is that these are the dates to keep the case moving procedurally. Those dates can be changed. Things can be prolonged. Like, all of that can change. But the case management order that's put out is essentially, if nothing changes, here's the dates that we're going to go by, and then there would be a trial by this date. So it's all procedural. So the case is going to move into the discovery stage. But that doesn't mean it's going to trial. But the trial would be the next step. But during the discovery phase, and this is the important part, that is when the evidence is reviewed from both parties. Up till this point, the judge has only been getting the bulk of the information coming from the plaintiffs, which is the Tate brothers. So when it goes to discovery, they're going to look at everything. Andrew said, oh, the counterclaim, and she filed it with the Romanian indictment. And no, the judge is not looking at the Romanian indictment at this point. All of that's going to come out during discovery. That's the next phase. So in the discovery process, when that ends, there can be what's called a summary judgment, which means that the judge can rule that even with all the evidence, that one side cannot legally win. So there's no need to go to trial. That's called a summary judgment. It's just like, look, you're going to lose. You are not going to legally win this. So we're just going to issue what's called a summary judgment. Then there's a settlement option, and that's where both parties can agree to resolve the case privately. So maybe they're suing her for $5 million. She's suing them for $5 million. Maybe they agree to just drop it and walk away. How about we don't sue each? How about we both just walk away? We're going to resolve this case. There's also voluntary dismissal, which I don't think is going to happen, where one side will withdraw the claims. And then there's a procedural dismissal, and I don't believe that's going to be an issue either, where one side will refuse to comply with discovery or court orders. So those are the options that's going to happen when discovery finishes. And then if both parties have enough evidence to move to trial, then it will go to trial. But it's all procedural. Every single step is just procedure. And the judges want the cases just to move along. So all of this is just filings and filings and filings and filings. And the judge doesn't make any major decisions until later on. All he's doing now is just making decisions on motions and in arguments, not on the evidence itself. So I wanted to just kind of clear that out while you were queuing that up.
And everything you just said really kind of also emphasizes why we were frustrated with the reporting from journalists that the judge ruled that there wasn't enough evidence, because that just emphasizes it even more.
Right.
It ends years of lies, defamation, unjust imprisonment, restriction of movements, and slander. The entire global campaign to silence, jail, defame, and harm Andrew and Tristan Tate has backfired.
Okay, yeah, that's what it was. So the entire campaign to silence, defame, imprison, etc., the Tate brothers has backfired. So all of these things, I think, again, are very much egregious in context, some of them in context with what he's said up to this point. So he's misleading the public, making them think that this is about a criminal case, making them think that charges have been dropped, making them think that judge said that there was no human trafficking, using this conspiracy of this global campaign to silence the Tates because they say such amazing things, and using these counterclaims in a civil lawsuit being dismissed without prejudice to say that this has backfired. He's using the word backfired. I mean,
yeah,
it's so silly.
He's clearly misrepresenting everything, literally everything that happened. Nothing has backfired. Here's the thing. They had been through the exact same thing, right? Like they tried to sue, all part of the same case. They tried to sue the Marine, and the Marine was dismissed with prejudice. And the judge said, you can't sue the Marine for doing his job, right? So they already had one dismissed as prejudice. I believe they had some of their claims removed. They tried to sue the UK Moldovan alleged victim, and she was dismissed multiple times without prejudice, and they've stopped adding her. Like, this is part of procedure. You know, they filed a bunch of shit. Some of the stuff didn't stick. What did stick is what they're going to move forward with in discovery. It's the same thing. So nothing backfired there. She gets to file these again. It's not a backfire. Her defamation is moving forward. It's survived. That means it's going to discovery. And the crazy thing is, again, like I said, in terms of money, she was suing them for $5 million. If she has a strong defamation case, which I believe she does, she can sue them for millions of dollars for defamation alone. So if some of these other claims don't survive, you know, multiple motions to dismiss, I mean, she's still going to win that, I think, because they said some pretty nasty stuff about her, and they presented it as fact. Nothing backfired.
No,
yeah.
And it's not only him saying that their case has backfired. It's he's conflating this with this supposed global conspiracy, meaning that he's saying that the Romanian case, the UK prosecutions, the tax evasion, it's all backfired because of these claims being dismissed without prejudice. It's so silly.
Yeah. But you have to keep in mind the average age of their fans.
Yes.
You have to remember that most of their fans are not in English-speaking countries. And you can see that by the comments and under all their stuff. And I hate to keep harping on this, but I think that the average Tate fan is just not that bright. You know, they're not that bright, or they're too trusting, and they're very gullible. So even if you do have somebody that has the intelligence to figure this stuff out, and they realize that they're being misled, that they trust them so blindly that they don't put that effort in to look into it themselves to actually see that they've been misled. So I think it's a combination of things. And of course, all of Tate's friends and all of the acquaintances and all the people who I think are getting paid to promote their bullshit, they're all posting or retweeting saying, oh, the apologies better come in now. We told you. Like, what are you talking about?
Oh, Walla, yeah, Walla.
My opinion here is that they are going to spend however much it costs to make their fan base and their acquaintances and their business contacts believe that they were not involved in any human trafficking operations. And I'm not saying they were. I'm just saying I think they're going to spend however many millions it costs them to try to rewrite that narrative to make people think that it was a global conspiracy, right? We weren't actually charged with something that where they had legit evidence, we were charged for human trafficking because they tried to silence us because we didn't take money from Israel. So they made up these bullshit charges of human trafficking. There's a global conspiracy against them, according to them, by Meta and Facebook and us and Israel and Anthony Plinkins and the Biden crime family and everybody else that they've said. They're trying to paint this picture of a global conspiracy. One, because that becomes the narrative if they're ever acquitted of the actual charges. See, we told you it wasn't true. And number two, if they are convicted, they can say the same thing. See, they convicted us. Israel is going to get away with what Israel wants to get away with. We didn't take Israel's money, so they convicted us. And their fan base will believe that. People who are in cults, and I fully believe this is a cult at this point. If you're in a cult, you are going to believe what your cult leader says to the end of time. This is how cult leaders, and I'm not saying they're going to do this, but this is how cult leaders convince people to drink the Kool-Aid and go to sleep to go up into the spaceship, the comet that's passing overhead, and you never wake up. It's dangerous stuff. Andrew said himself early on, he said multiple times, everything is a cell, he said. Everything is a cell. Everything that he does is calculated. It's all a cell. He says that himself. So I think he's setting the stage now to where if he's acquitted, he can say, I told you so. Or if he's convicted, he can say, I told you so. Just like when he found out that he was under investigation for human trafficking, he went on the podcast campaign. All he talked about was stage 1, stage 2, stage 3. And then he talked about how they can charge you for absolutely no reason whatsoever. They can fabricate evidence. They don't have to have a reason to charge you. He went on this huge campaign. So then when he got charged, he was like, I told you they can make stuff up and charge you. So that's what he does, in my opinion.
Yeah, and I do agree with Dwayne in the chat that I do believe it's a cult as well, which I've said. It's my opinion.
Yeah, I do too.
Yeah. And you see this as well with some of these lads are really dumb, and some of them I think sound dumb because they're so brainwashed and so isolated and so conditioned to not look at outside or sources at all, that they sound a lot dumber than they are.
Well, they buy into the whole thing because, Tate will say the mainstream media is lying to you about everything. They're lying to you about absolutely everything. It's all false accusers, false stories. It's a global conspiracy. They're all lying because they don't want me to tell you the truth of how you can break free and not be a slave.
Yeah.
And they eat that shit up. Especially if you're someone who's prone to conspiracy to begin with. Like if you're in that sphere to where you're easily, a lot of these people gravitate towards conspiracy to begin with. A lot of his fans, you can see when they post. Like if you're that type of personality and you have somebody in authority that you look up to or you think is cool, telling you that everyone's lying to you, they lied about this, they lied about this, they lied about this, they lied about this. You're okay, and they're lying about Tate too. They believe that stuff. Most of them are kids. It's unfortunate.
Yeah, and Mira Maxima in the chat, and we've discussed this before, that NXIVM all over again, and I see many similarities with NXIVM. Very different presentation, with Keith Raniere being
McBride represented Keith Raniere for NXIVM.
Yeah.
He was part of I believe it was the appeal team for Keith Raniere's appeal. Joseph McBride, Andrew Tate's lawyer, was part of Keith Raniere from NXIVM's appeal team. But fucking wrap your head around that. That's what you're dealing with here.
Yeah, just watching those documentaries, the way Raniere and Tate, it's such similar tactics with just completely different presentation. One big alpha loud man and one soft-spoken small guru man. It's just a different presentation, but so similar. Yeah.
Yeah, it's wild.
Okay, we've got 13 seconds left of this McBride video, so let's see if there's anything worth pausing on. If not, but let's just see what he says for the rest here.
It's over, but our defamation suit is just getting started.
Oh my god, I can't play a second of this video. Oh. So he says all of this, everything he said.
That's how bad it is.
Everything is said in this video, and then he lifts his finger. Maybe for some listening to the audio, I'll describe this. He points his finger up in the air and says, but our defamation case is proceeding. So is theirs.
So is theirs.
So is theirs. Oh.
Yeah, it's absolutely insane. The gaslighting is next level.
That's incredible. I actually think this is worse than I realised now that I've properly stopped to go through this as we are. It just gets worse and worse.
Yeah. Yeah, but our defamation case continues. So does hers.
Yes.
So he shared the document that literally proves her defamation case also continues, and it's as equally as bad as theirs. Like that's the craziest part about the whole thing. Like it's the same thing. As a matter of fact, I would wager that, in my opinion, her defamation case is stronger than theirs
Oh,
because they have the standard of, actual malice has to be proven for them. All she has to prove is that they made a false statement as fact. They presented a false statement as fact. That should be pretty easy to prove. Where they have to prove that she made statements publicly that she knew were false when she said them. I don't know how in the world they're going to prove that.
yeah.
So I have a bunch, there are multiple idiots on X as usual, because I said in our stream that I believe that her countersuit was strong and I think she's going to win. Yeah, nothing changes. I've always believed that as a matter of fact, and we talked about this before in Spaces, I think we were all surprised when the countersuit came and there were allegations of human trafficking and all of that in there. We were all expecting a defamation lawsuit.
Yeah.
So the fact that all this other stuff was in there, I mean, that was a surprise to all of us. We covered that at the time. But my thought has always been and always will be that I believed her defamation case against them is incredibly strong, and I think she's going to win a judgment against them. But it's also possible, they're suing her for $5 million, she's suing them for $5 million. Maybe they're going to come to an agreement that nobody gets any millions. Who knows? She's just and I mean no offense to her, but she's just some regular woman in the United States. So if there's a judgment against her, they're not getting $5 million out of her. However, she could get $5 million out of them. You know what I mean? Like you can't, what are those saying? You can't squeeze blood from a turnip. If you don't have $5 million, you're not going to collect $5 million. But if you're suing millionaires, if you get a judgment against that, you might be able to get millions of dollars. So we'll see. But I believe that, she's going to win the defamation suit if it goes to trial.
I agree. I completely agree. Okay, 6 seconds of McBride. Can I get through 6 seconds without pausing? Let's see.
Andrew and Tristan Tate, innocent since day one.
Okay. He finished up saying Andrew and Tristan Tate innocent since day one. I mean, this ruling doesn't necessarily prove that, or the judge didn't say that, but hey, that could be Mr. McBride's opinion.
Yeah, that's opinion based. The judge did not and cannot make that decision. Yes.
Now, disclaimer. Mr. McBride has began putting disclaimers beneath his posts. So he put a disclaimer.
Oh, did he?
I've got it up on screen, Crayons, just so you know, so the audience can see. I'll read this out. Disclaimer. This is beneath this post for the video. All references to Judge G. Joseph Curley and the court's rulings in this video are summaries and paraphrased interpretations based on publicly available orders and filings. They are presented for informational and commentary purposes only, and do not purport to quote the court verbatim.
Yeah.
You are a lawyer in the case, sir.
Yep.
What do you mean?
He knows he did the wrong thing by posting that. So he added a disclaimer. He also knows that most people are not going to read the disclaimer. He knows. He knows exactly. We all know. Listen, if you are somebody who posts on social media and you've had any level of success in terms of having posts get a lot of views, you know that your original post is the only thing that matters. It doesn't matter if you add a disclaimer. It doesn't matter if you add a correction, if you said something wrong. The only thing that gets traction is your initial post. If you look at his initial post, it's probably got hundreds of thousands of views versus a disclaimer that's got, almost 7,000 views.
Yes.
He knows that.
Yeah.
Everybody knows that.
Yeah.
And this is his legal out. So if her legal team goes to the judge and says, look at how he's misrepresenting the case, or someone files another a complaint against him, because lawyers have ethics, they have ethics standards that they have to abide by. And he completely misrepresented this case, at an unbelievable scale. He can say, well, I put in a disclaimer. That's insane.
I find
it's LOL.
It's incredible. He's posting as a lawyer for the clients in the case, saying disclaimer, this is just interpretations, just for commentary purposes. It's not going to fly. You can't do that. It's not going to fly. What are you doing? Oh, I couldn't believe this. And then, that's not to mention, there was initially a third post in this thread. There was initially a third post in this thread with a Google Drive link to the ruling.
That said her name, and they're not allowed to say her name, I
Yes.
believe. I believe there was a ruling on that they can't say her name. And he did it anyway, because I'm sure it's going to get brought up to the judge's attention. He's going to say, yeah, well, I deleted it. There has been an update on that. If you're posting something from 2023, there was an update to where they argued against her remaining anonymous, and the judge agreed in part. And I don't have the ruling in front of me, so I don't remember the terminology, but it was basically the judge said, talk about the case or her at your own peril, was pretty much how the to paraphrase what he said, talk about her at your own peril, sort of thing. So, what he's doing, legally, the judge is probably going to give them another break. When they did the whole push and said that the judge determined that the girls were lying, that was brought up to the judge, and he was like, yeah, okay, anyway, moving on. Like, it didn't even phase him. McBride knows what. Listen, McBride, for as much as we like to make fun of him and call him a bozo, and I personally believe he's a hack of a lawyer, and I don't believe, in my opinion, that I don't think he. I think it's laughable that he calls himself a Christian and that he is a beacon of truth and all that. He wields the sword of truth or whatever nonsense he said. I don't think he's a good guy. I think he's a bad guy, pretending to be a good guy, in my opinion. But he knows what he's doing in terms of how to get attention and how to help shape a narrative. However he wants to shape. He knows he's smart enough to understand that. He understands how social media works. He understands that headlines are everything.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, it's all very deliberate, and all this stuff is very pre-planned with pre-planned talking points, very clearly.
Yeah. I would wager, and again, my opinion, that if you were to subpoena private chat records between him and the brothers, there's probably mass coordination happening, saying, well, if this happens, this is how we're going to spin it. If this happens, this is how we're going to spin it. If this happens, this is what we're going to, I would bet that that's happening somewhere.
Yeah.